I'm not coming back. I've found someone better and already moved your things to storage. My name is Leonard Kessler, 54 years old, standing in the kitchen of our Des Moines condo at 11:42 p.m. on a Thursday night, staring at my phone. My wife Dana was supposed to be on day 4 of a girls' trip to Palm Springs. The message came with a screenshot, a transfer of $118,000 from our joint savings to her personal account. I set the phone down and finished my coffee. 15 years of marriage, gone in 2 sentences and a screenshot. The warning signs had been there for months. Weekend getaways that lasted longer, new dresses she never wore around me. Phone call that ended the moment I walked into a room. I noticed all of it. I'm a forensic accountant. Spotting discrepancies is literally my profession. But I said nothing. Maybe that was my first mistake. Or maybe it was marrying someone who thought my career was just dull spreadsheets and lifeless numbers. I opened my laptop and checked one of my private email accounts, the one Dana never knew existed. 3 notifications blinked from my security system. Someone had tried to reset passwords on accounts she didn't even know about. She was being thorough. I almost respected that. I picked up my phone and typed 2 words. Good luck. Then I called my brother, Jason. Remember that contingency plan we talked about 5 years ago? I asked when he answered. It's time. You sure? He said. Yes, I replied. She just made her move. I hung up and looked at the framed wedding photo on the wall, the only picture in the condo that still showed us together. I should have realized that meant something. I'd met Dana Bowman at a University of Iowa alumni event. I was 38, newly divorced and focused entirely on building my accounting firm. Dana was 34, confident, ambitious, and completely uninterested in what I did. I don't need to understand the details, she'd say with a smile, as long as you make enough for us to live comfortably. We married after a year of dating. I funded her yoga studio entirely from my own savings. When she wanted a bigger home in a better neighborhood, I agreed. Luxury cars, vacations. I nodded and signed the checks. My father once warned me while we were repairing his deck. He paused, hammer in hand, and said, Son, I've noticed your wife spends a lot of your money. Just make sure she values the work behind it. I brushed him off then, but his word stuck. 6 years into the marriage, I quietly began restructuring my assets. Nothing illegal, just smart protection. 2 LLCs, a few trusts, crypto investments, offshore accounts. She only knew about our joint checking and savings. As her online following grew, she started taking longer wellness trips. You wouldn't enjoy it, she'd say. It's just yoga and juice cleanses. Last Christmas, she forgot my birthday. The next day, she handed me an expensive watch with a smile, saying she was too busy with the studio expansion. I accepted it. But that same night, I finalized the paperwork for my contingency plan. The truth was always there. I just didn't want to see it. The morning after her text, I woke up early and brewed coffee, like always. Habits die hard, even when your world's in ashes. I logged into my private financial management system, custom built for my firm but adapted for personal use, and triggered the contingency protocol Jason and I had designed. Within minutes, I froze all joint accounts and credit cards. Then, I filed a fraud alert for the $118,000 transfer, using my direct bank contacts. I forwarded proof of financial misconduct to my attorney, along with, I emailed my attorney with instructions to begin divorce proceedings immediately. Then, I called my mother. Dana's left me. I said flatly. She took the money and moved my things into storage, all while pretending to be on vacation. There was silence on the other end. Then she finally spoke. I'm sorry, Leonard, but I can't say I'm surprised. What are you going to do? What I've been preparing to do for years, I replied quietly. Protect what's mine. An hour later, Dana's name flashed on my phone. I declined the call. 10 more followed. Then came a text. What the hell did you do? The money's gone and my cards don't work. I didn't respond. Instead, I drove to the storage facility she'd mentioned. Using the access code she'd sent, I retrieved 2 boxes, some clothes and my laptop. Everything else, family photos, books, keepsake from my father, was gone. Something in me hardened right then. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about 15 years erased in an instant, about someone who believed she could simply rewrite my life without consequence. I stopped at a coffee shop, opened my laptop, and started digging. Using professional databases reserved for forensic investigators, I looked up Trey Harmon, the fitness influencer Dana had been tagging on Instagram for months, the someone better she'd left me for. Within minutes, the truth surfaced. Trey's empire was drowning in debt. 3 maxed-out business credit cards. A leased gym property month behind on payments. And, unsurprisingly, Dana had co-signed a car loan with him just 2 months earlier. I closed my laptop and sat back. For the first time in years, I wasn't angry. I was calm, razor-sharp calm. I knew exactly what needed to be done. Monday morning, I walked into my office as though nothing had happened. My assistant, Valerie, looked up, surprised. "Leonard, I thought you'd be taking time off. Dana called here 3 times already." "Did she?" I said evenly. "She sounded upset, said there was a mix-up with your accounts, and she needed to reach you urgently." "If she calls again," I said, "tell her to contact my attorney." By noon, her desperation had escalated, from phone calls to a personal visit. The receptionist buzzed my line. "Your wife is here. She's very insistent." I sighed, straightened my tie, and walked to the lobby. There she was, Dana, every inch a picture of polished panic. Designer sunglasses perched on her head, yoga outfit coordinated down to the shoes, and that same performative smile she'd used for years when she wanted something. "Leonard," she began loudly, so everyone in the lobby could hear, "there's been a huge misunderstanding with the bank. All our accounts are frozen." "Not a misunderstanding," I said, my tone low but precise. "You transferred funds without authorization. The bank flagged it as fraud." Her smile faltered, voice tightening. "It was our joint account. I'm your wife. You're my soon-to-be ex-wife who emptied our savings while announcing you'd moved out and found someone new," I replied coolly. "That's textbook financial misconduct." Her expression shifted, panic edging toward fury. "You can't do this to me. I've already put deposits down on a new place. I've made commitments with Trey." "Yes," I said, "I know all about those commitments." The blood drained from her face. "You're investigating me." "Just protecting myself," I said, "from fraud." "I'll fight this," she hissed. "I deserve half of everything." I met her gaze, unblinking. "Half of what's in those accounts?" "Sure, but you seem to believe that's all there is." She blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "You'll find out in discovery," I said simply, then turned and walked back toward my office. That afternoon, an email arrived from Dana's newly hired attorney, demanding full access to my financial records and threatening to expose supposed irregularities in my accounting practice. If I refused to comply, they threatened to expose me, a pathetic attempt with no real leverage. I simply forwarded the email to my attorney with a single instruction: proceed as planned. By evening, Dana had already rallied our mutual friends, twisting the story in her favor. My phone buzzed endlessly with texts accusing me of being spiteful and controlling. Not one of them asked where she'd been all week or who she'd been with. No one questioned the $118,000 she'd taken. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I went to the same community gym I'd trained at for years, not Dana's polished studio or Trey's overhyped fitness center. I worked out until my muscles trembled, then drove back to my hotel room. The trap was closing, but not around me. 3 days later, my attorney called. "We found something interesting," she said. "Dana's been draining your joint account for over a year. Small withdrawals at first, then bigger ones." "Where was the money going?" I asked, though the answer was obvious. "Several accounts. Some under her name, but most under a business registered to Trey Harmon. Nearly $80,000 total, all sourced from your shared funds." "That's financial infidelity," I said quietly. "Exactly. It strengthens your case." I thanked her and hung up. I wasn't shocked, only hollow. It wasn't just betrayal, it was calculation. Dana hadn't walked out on me. She'd been funding her escape, financing her new lover's collapsing empire with my earnings. That night, a message appeared from an unknown number. Back off. Dana deserves better than you. Don't make this mess uglier than it already is. Trey Harmon himself. Predictable. The next morning, I drove to Jason's house. My brother was a cybersecurity analyst, the perfect complement to my financial background. We'd handled complex investigations together, but this was personal. I need everything on Harmon Fitness LLC. I told him. Accounts, debts, loans, credit files, all of it. Jason raised an eyebrow. We're staying above board, right? Of course. Just connecting public dots faster than the average person. 3 hours later, we had our answer. Trey wasn't just in debt. He was drowning. His Instagram-fueled image of success was smoke and mirrors. The fancy equipment, renovations, flashy promotions, all financed by dangerous loans, and lately by Dana's contributions. But there was more, something she clearly didn't know. Check this out, Jason said, tapping his screen. Loan application from 4 months ago. He used the gym equipment as collateral. Nothing unusual there. I muttered, maybe not, but look who co-signed. I leaned closer. Dana's signature sat neatly beside Trey's on a $175,000 loan agreement. She signed before she left you, Jason said quietly, and the contract lists spouse under shared liability. They used your merits to secure better rates. My chest went tight. So she tied my assets to his loan without telling me. Exactly. And that's not all. 3 credit cards, a car lease, even the new gym rental, all under joint liability, all backed by your finances. I stepped to the window. Outside, neighborhood kids played in the yard, laughing freely, unaware of the moral wreckage adulthood breeds. She has no idea what she's unleashed, I said softly, and neither does he. The next morning, I met with my lawyer again and laid every document on her desk. I want to move immediately before they catch on. She reviewed the files and nodded. We'll file for emergency asset protection today. The fraud alone gives us ground to freeze everything until settlement. That afternoon, I drove to Harmon Fitness. The place was spotless, chrome machines, bright walls painted with hollow motivational quotes, Trey's face smirking from posters like some self-made messiah. Inside, young influencers posed for selfies between lazy sets. And then Trey saw me. He was tall in person, the kind of height that seemed practiced, not natural. His tan was too even, his teeth too white, the artificial glow of a man who'd made a living selling an image. Trey approached with that influencer charm, hand extended, smile calibrated to disarm. You must be Leonard, he said smoothly. Dana's told me about you. I'm sure she has, I replied, ignoring his handshake. We need to speak, privately. For a split second, the smile cracked, but he gestured toward his office anyway. Glass walls, soundproof, a fishbowl for business secrets. He closed the door. So, what can I do for you? I set a folder on his desk. You can start by looking through this. He frowned and opened it. Page after page of documentation, loan agreements, credit lines, leases, all co-signed with my marital assets. I don't understand, he said, voice cautious. It's simple, I said, leaning forward. Dana used our marriage to secure your debts. We're getting divorced, which means those guarantees are now invalid. Every dollar you borrowed under my name is about to implode. The color drained from his face as he skimmed the evidence. These are legitimate business agreements between Dana and me, he muttered defensively. Perhaps, but the banks approved them based on our combined financial standing that no longer exists. He shut the folder, exhaling through his nose. What do you want from me? Nothing, I said. I just thought you deserved a heads up. The banks will start calling your loans within days. His jaw tightened. Dana said you were wealthy. That money wasn't a problem for you. Money's never been the problem, I replied, turning toward the door. Trust was. I paused at the exit. One more thing. When Dana left, she took personal items, things that mattered to me, a watch from my father, old photographs, items she had no right to. Trey studied me in silence, eyes narrowing slightly. Then, without a word, he nodded. The next morning, a courier arrived at my hotel. Inside the box, the missing photos, my father's watch, a few other keepsakes. No note, none needed. That afternoon, my attorney called. The emergency asset freeze had been approved. Every joint account, property, and investment was officially locked until the divorce concluded. Later, when I checked my system dashboard, alerts flooded in. Dana had tried accessing the frozen account 17 times in a single day. She'd even attempted to open a new credit line using our home as collateral. Denied every attempt. Then my phone rang. Dana, I answered. What have you done? She snapped, panic trembling under her voice. The bank's calling in Trey's loans. All of them. They are seizing his equipment tomorrow. That's unfortunate, I said flatly. This is vindictive. Leonard, you're destroying him just to hurt me. I'm not destroying anyone, I replied calmly. I'm protecting myself from crimes you committed. You used my financial standing to fund another man's business without consent. That's not betrayal. That's fraud. She hesitated, her tone softening. We can fix this. Just come home. We can talk. 15 years of marriage, and she still thought her voice could bend my will. There's nothing left to fix, I said. The divorce will proceed. The investigation will finish. And Trey, I let the pause hang in the air, will finally learn how expensive arrogance can be. I ended the call, blocked her number. That night, I slept for the first time in months, deeply, peacefully, as if my mind had finally exhaled. 3 weeks later, I sat in a conference room, expression unreadable, as Dana and her lawyer entered for the mandatory mediation session. She looked exhausted. Designer clothes, perfect makeup, all unable to hide the sleepless eyes and trembling hands. Her attorney spoke first, voice strained but polite. My client is prepared to be reasonable in the division of assets, despite the aggressive legal measures taken by Mr. Kessler's side. My attorney smiled faintly. Good to hear, because there's been a development. She slid a file across the table. The bank's completed its fraud review, she said evenly. They've confirmed multiple forgeries, documents where Dana Bowman falsified Leonard Kessler's signature to secure loans using marital assets as collateral without his consent. Dana's attorney flipped through the pages, color draining from his face. We'll need time to review this, Dana's lawyer muttered, voice tight. Of course, my attorney replied calmly. But you should know, the bank has already referred the case to the district attorney. This meeting is a courtesy before criminal charges are filed. Dana's eyes widened in disbelief. Criminal charges? Leonard, you can't be serious. I held her gaze. I'm not the one pressing charges, Dana. The bank is. That's what happens when you commit loan fraud. Her lawyer leaned close, whispering frantically, but she shook her head, panic flaring. If Ms. Bowman is willing to sign our proposed settlement agreement today, my attorney continued evenly, Mr. Kessler is prepared to provide a statement that could mitigate the criminal implications. He will not pursue charges for the theft of personal property or for the unauthorized transfer of funds. I watched as realization shattered what little confidence Dana had left. She'd expected rage, maybe humiliation, but she'd never imagined consequences. The settlement is generous, I said quietly. You'll keep your yoga studio, your car, your personal belongings, no alimony, but you'll also take full responsibility for every debt you created in my name. Her lips trembled. And Trey. My client has no business with Mr. Harmon, my attorney replied coolly. But without Leonard's assets backing those loans, I understand the banks have already begun repossessions. Dana's shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of her. Without another word, she signed. As we walked out, she reached for my arm. I never thought you'd fight back, she whispered. You always just went along with everything. That was my choice, I said, pulling free, just like this was yours. I didn't look back. A month later, I left the hotel for good. Found a small craftsman house near downtown Des Moines. Nothing flashy, but sturdy, with a porch that creaked when you stepped on it and walls that held silence instead of tension. It was exactly what I needed. Friends said Dana had moved to Colorado to start over. Her Instagram was a carousel of mountain selfies and quotes about healing. Trey's gym had been sold to a national chain, and rumor had it he'd moved to Miami, chasing investors and sunshine. Neither of them ever mentioned what really happened. People rarely post their failures. One Saturday, Jason came by to help install kitchen cabinets. "Heard anything from Dana?" he asked, handing me a drill. "No," I said, "and I don't expect to." "You know," he said after a moment, "you could have taken her for everything. The fraud charges alone would have buried her." I shrugged. What would be the point? She's not my problem anymore. We work in quiet rhythm, measure, cut, mount. The sound of tools and sawdust filling the spaces words couldn't. "I'm thinking of taking some time off," I said after a while. "Maybe head to the cabin in Minnesota. Do some fishing." Jason smiled. "Dad would have liked that. You haven't been there since the funeral." That evening, after he left, I sat on the back porch with a glass of bourbon. The neighborhood was calm. A dog barked in the distance. A kid laughed somewhere down the block. It was different from the gated luxury Dana had once demanded. Quieter, more real. I thought about the last 15 years. How I'd let someone else define my worth. How I'd ignored every sign that pointed here. How, when the time came, I'd been ready, not because I wanted revenge, but because deep down, I'd always known this moment was inevitable. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt free. The next morning, I called my office, told them I'd be gone for 2 weeks. Then I packed my truck, locked the door, and started off. No plans, no timelines, no invisible ledger to balance. Just the open road and the quiet satisfaction of a man who finally reclaimed his life.